I'll try to get there. First of all, Your Excellency, Heavy Daparanas, thank you very much for your presence again. Consul General for Greece, Dr. Stavros Ilimis. My friends around the world, Michael Reppers from USA and Marlin from from UK, representing our very good friend Andrew O'Hara, Alexis Mathiakis from Greece, part of Greece, part of New Zealand, and of course we have from Cyprus, Anna Marangou. And all the other people that are here, welcome to this thing. It's a very important issue that we keep alive. I don't know how I'm going to work this thing because I'm not also at 100%. Today I'm going to speak mainly about, as Dad said, about all the excuses that the British Museum and the British government have been using and are still using are dead and buried, as far as I'm concerned. Now we see the Parthenon up on the Acropolis. The Parthenon, a Doric temple, is still today the architectural wonder of the world, because now the building on earth has a vehicle its beauty, symmetry and symbolism of the Parthenon. It is the supreme achievement of beauty in all recorded history and reflects the indestructibility of Hellenism. The Parthenon is a superb creation of the Greek mind that will stand forever and ever. And just to be very quickly, as you can see, there's some of the greatest philosophers on earth walked on that rock, the rock as they call it, the Holy Rock, 2,500 years ago, that we are still learning from these people today. But very unfortunately, time and men changed that, and from that one, during Turkish occupation, we find the Parthenon like this, with Turkish houses built all around it. It's a great shame indeed. But that's time and that's men. And then after Elgin left in 1803, this is how I left the Parthenon. Not the way you see it today, in a wreck. It's a great shame that a great building like that to end up like this. And when he took them, he says here, I'm sorry, the slide should have been fixed up, perhaps all over the place. It says here the Parthenon and the Elgin Marbles. One thing I want to make very clear from the very beginning with everybody, don't ever call them the Elgin Marbles. Elgin did not create them. They are the Parthenon sculptures, as you see them in the British Museum there today. You can use them as Parthenon sculptures or Parthenon marbles, but never as the Elgin Marbles. Even in The Hague, the International Law Court, when I was invited to represent our committee a few years ago, the General Secretary of The Hague, Mr. Vanderhood, during his opening and welcoming address of 62 invited visitors from around the world, he stated that the Parthenon marbles are on the lips of people around the world. Now that's a big statement to come from the General Secretary of The Hague. So let's call them the Parthenon marbles and not the so-called Elgin marbles, as you see them there in the British Museum. And if you happen to go to the British Museum and some guide says to you the Elgin marbles, you tell them. Don't be afraid. Tell them these are not Lord Elgin's marbles. They come from the Parthenon. How dare you call them the Elgin marbles? And now we come to a bit of a history about all the excuses that have been used. And I begin with one, the first one. If we look closely to the British historians that went through Greece at the time when the damage was done from 1801 to 1803 mainly, British historians like Edward Dodwell, Edward Daniel Clark, Sir William Jells, John Hobhouse and others, even the current British historians, William Sinclair in England and the late Christopher Hitchens. They made drawings in those days. They didn't have cameras, as you know, and this drawing was taken just before the beginning of the despoiling of the Parthenon by Sir William Jells in 1801. You can see there the letter and the scaffolding. How can I make this? Well, you can see it, can't surely. The letter and the scaffolding. Oh, there's the letter and the scaffolding. Now the same corner, that corner there of the Parthenon, few months later by Giovanni Battista Lucetti, the man that actually took the marbles out. He was hired from Italy to make drawings and plaster casts to improve the fine arts in Great Britain, not to raise the building, not to wreck the building, to take the sculptures out and so forth. And that drawing is in the National Gallery of Scotland today. as I said, was drawn by Giovanni Battista Lucieri. The same corner, once John, these are the marbles, the metals they were taking out. The same corner down the bottom in 1809 when Sir John Hobhouse made this drawing. So you can see the damage that was caused. Edward Dodwell writes down the bottom, don't have to read the lot, it says, it is now relatively reduced to a state of shattered dissolution. These are British historian Edward Dodwell. And another brilliant person, this one, Edward Daniel Clark, he witnessed when they took one of the metals out and come crashing down. But most importantly, Giovanni Battista Lucieri, the Italian artist, said to this man that he wished an order be given to preserve rather than destroy such a glorious edifice. This man wrote all this in history. And as I took the metal out, they were trying to take it out, the ropes broke, and down came one of these magnificent arts, broken into thousands of pieces. And he went on to write, that you can see it down here, where he says, I'm sorry, it says down there that, what I just repeated, that he wished an order to be enforced to preserve rather than destroy. And the next one, when the metal came down, he said, tell us the end. Nothing will allow you to seduce me any further. And he goes on to finish by saying, we'll never again repair. How can you repair that? And Sir William Jell writes, all is left of the best cornice of the Parthenon is a series of jacket box sticking up like broken teeth, as you can see up there. Now this is distinguished English historians at the time write all this, not Greeks. So, and then they have, and this is another drawing by English travellers, how they left the Parthenon. As I said, not the way you see it today. The first thing the Greeks did when they liberated the country was to try to put it back as much as they can. And where were the marbles going for? Were they going for the British Museum? As you see them there today? No, this is what they're heading for Lord Elgin's mansion in Scotland. And here is his great-great-grandson in the same building today. I have photos of this house inside the house, full of antiquities. I'm sure many of them are from Greece and other parts of the world, because as His Excellency mentioned earlier, it was that era that the big powers like England and France could just about take away anything that they wanted from less fortunate countries like Greece and Egypt and others, and there was nothing you could do about them. Now this gentleman here, William Sinclair, the British historian, wrote 3 books, Lord Elgin and the Marbles. He's the one that uncovered the cover-up of the British Museum when they used chemicals and wire brushes to scrape the marbles because he thought they should have been whiter than white by Lord Devine after he built a special section of the museum to house the marbles. And you can see those dark spots there. They didn't touch it because they were too fragile and were broken. And this is the exact spot when they realised they were causing irreparable damage to the sculptures. That dark part, that's the natural colour of the sculptures and not the white part. And so the next thing is that they say that to save them from pollution, because one was Neil McGregor, the director of the British Museum, out here 2 years ago to promote his book. He stated that 2 things he said, that several things, but one thing that he said that the marbles in Athens tell a Greek story and the marbles in London tell a world story. But worse thing than that, he said that Lord Elgin, by taking the marbles, he saved them from vandalism, weathering and pollution. Now you saw all the excuses that they've been using about saving them from vandalism. I just showed you. Is that saving them from vandalism? And from pollution? Was the pollution in Athens 200 years ago? I'd like to quote you what Philip Sassoon, the private secretary to the Great Britain's Prime Minister at the time, wrote on the 26th of November 1928, so much about pollution. The private secretary, he wrote in the Times that when he visited the Acropolis, he kept thinking that the splendid rooms of the Parthenon and the bright air of Athens, would be a more suitable place for the most harmonious sculptures in the world than the British Museum. And that came from the private secretary of the Prime Minister of England at the time in 1928. So Elgin went back to England, as you all know. Sorry. Now, secondly, it is stated that that he paid for it legally, that he took them legally, and that it cost him a fortune. Well, I'm not going to speak about this because other speakers will be speaking about the legality today and perhaps tomorrow. But I am going to say this. The so-called referendum type of affirmation that was drawn up, and this document exists today, because everything was based on this document you see in front of you. And he says at the last one, liberty to take away any sculptures or inscriptions which do not interfere with the works or walls of the Citadel, the Acropolis building, which do not interfere. Okay? Now, Reverend Hunt, his priest, right there on the 1st of July. On the 6th of July, we are told, this is 1801 of course, we are told that he received a firman, or a firman, or firmani, however we used to call it. No one has ever seen that firman. It is just the stories. It just doesn't exist. Dean David Bruderson, a Jewish American on constitutional law at the University of New York, we sat on 2 international conferences together, and when we in America, Michael, you were there, then he said that he's been to Constantinople in search for the original document. There is no trace of it, and other people have gone. And we know for a fact that the Turks keep excellent records, very good records for historical records. And there's nothing of any kind that again got Elgin on the 6th of July or before or after, any kind of a firman or firman or any kind of a document to remove sculptures from the building. It was translated into Italian, no signature. Last year when we in London for the first International Colloquy, after we spent the day in the Hellenic Centre, next day we spent the day in the museum. And there you can see, that hand you see there is Eddie O'Hara, the chairman of the British Committee, that he points out in Italian that does not give him specific permission to remove sculptures from the building. It was translated into English, and that exists too. And when you read it very carefully, the English, I should say, and the Italian translation, the English and Italian, you can see very clearly it was based very clearly on the first of this one here. It's just like a broken record, keeps repeating itself over and over again. So that also is a dead and buried history that he had permission to do what he did. He did not have permission to bribe the Turks. There's a big difference buying than bribing. And thirdly, they used to say that the Greeks can't look after them, they don't care about the ancient things, and they have nowhere to put them. And that more people will see them in London than they will in, oh, what am I doing here? This thing right away from me, sorry. That more people see them in London than they will in Athens. Well, this story is also dead and buried, because now with the beautiful new Acropolis Museum, as you all know, I'm sure many of you have seen it. It's a magnificent museum, there's no excuse. And here we are with Michael Breppers in 2008. A year before it was officially open, we spoke there with Professor Parthenon Marbles, remember Michael, the three of us. We brought the house down, it was a packed house. And it's an excellent museum. Why did he not live in Dennis? I can't change it. He's there, but I don't know what I've done. Here we are. Okay, thank you. Right. You go to the artists. Up and down? Yes, up and down, yep. Absolutely. I'm sure you've been to the New York Acropolis Museum and you've seen it all. We come now to the... When Elgin went back in 1806, and after getting into financial difficulties, he had the marbles valued. There was something like £100,000. Other values were saying they were priceless, and he owed the government around £70,000. He had divorced his very rich young wife, the Mary Elizabeth, so he decided to sell it to the British government. So the British government, in order to purchase them, they appointed a special select committee to look into this. The matter was raised in Parliament. and I can quote you what was said in British Parliament in 1816 when he was trying to settle. And that's right, the member was writing in Parliament by Sir John Newport, and I quote what he said: "The Honourable Lord has taken advantage of the most unjustifiable means." He was referring to the bribing of the Turkish garrison commander on the Acropolis, and has committed the most flagrant pillages. It was, it seems, fatal that a representative of our country loot those objects. The word looting comes in British Parliament by a member of British Parliament in 1816. Loot those objects that the Turks and others consider them sacred. On the same day, the Speaker of Parliament noted in the calendar, Lord Elgin's petition had been filed. His ownership right of the collection had been contested. His conduct has also been censored. It was moved to Parliament for £35,000, and immediately there was an amendment by another member of British Parliament, Hayes Hammersley, who he too criticised Lord Elgin's action, and he moved to amendment to Parliament for £25,000, but be kept in the British Museum until such time Greece is a free nation again, and upon the request for the return to be given back, and as it says here, with no further procedure or negotiation. Unfortunately, that amendment motion didn't go through. What a great shame. But what does all this tell us today? The word looting was mentioned in British Parliament in 1816, and the intention to give the Parthenon Marbles back was also mentioned, and the feeling is still very strong today in Great Britain by many people. In 1890, an 8-page editorial by Franklin Harrison, entitled "Return the Elgin Marbles," appeared in the magazine 19th Century, and I quote you. In the article, the writer appeals to the gentle feelings of the English people and maintains that even if Elgin's looting is excused, the word looting comes once again in British magazine in 1890. Even if Elgin's looting is excused, the retaining in London of parts essential of the Parthenon is no longer tolerable or convenient. The restitution is urgent. They're talking about restitution way back in 1890. The restitution is urgent both as an act of international justice and as an act beneficial to the science and the arts. In the same article, Harrison also maintained that the sculptures were dearer to the Greeks than to the British, that for 2,240 years they had formed an integral part of Greece, and that therefore they were much more sacred than the Tower of London or Westminster Abbey. He writes, "What would be our feelings if some writer had deprived us of our national monuments?" Further on he remarks, "During their transportation and long exposure to London stormy weather, those marbles have sustained and are still sustaining an irreparable damage." In 1890 we were told this. So we can see from the very beginning, when they removed the Parthenon marbles, right to the present, many distinguished English men and women have criticised Lord Elgin and are very much in favour for the Parthenon marbles return to Greece. During the colloquy today and tomorrow, there will be other speakers who will speak on various topics concerning the history and the return of the Parthenon marbles to Greece. I would like to close by reiterating again and again what I have been saying for years, and every lecture I give. This has been going on for 37 years, long time, and I'm getting tired. On the way here this morning I said to myself, I'm going to sit back and let all the experts speak and let me listen to what I have been saying for 37 years. But I have to tell you this. During a wise old Greek said, while the Parthenon was being dilapidated, raped, anyway, like by Lord Elgin's men, as Lord Elgin's those Lord Barons, I should say, I'm sorry, Lord Barons' friends were travelling through northern Greece. A wise old Greek said to Lord Barons' friends, "You British are taking away the treasures of our forefathers," referring to all these in the British Museum today. "Preserve the world," he said, "because Greeks one day will come and demand them back." Well, ladies and gentlemen, that day has come. And there are Greeks all around the world who are crying out for their return. We can see here in Athens, Greeks from America, Canada, Australia, and even Greece. And we went and saw the Minister Gerolanos then, at the time, to ask him about, because we had passed a motion to go legally if we could from IHAPA here in Australia. But the Greek government told us then and there, no litigation of any kind. Greece will not go to court under any circumstances. And the same thing, Mr. Zavara last year in his office told me personally the same thing. Greece do not wish to go to court. Keep doing what you're doing and passing the word around the world, and they're going to work through UNESCO. This was the minister then. So, one of the very first to criticise Lord Elgin was Lord Barton, as we all know. And the British Committee was formed in 1983. In 1983, and this is the wonderful people, Professor Robert Brandy and Graham Beans, the first chairman and the vice chairman. Unfortunately, both have passed away. Lovely people, working wonderfully well for the return of the Parthenon Marbles. William G. Stewart had his own TV program in London, and he did allow a program while the Parthenon Marbles go back. He had a tremendous result from the telephone phone-in. Nearly 100,000 people phoned in, something 92,000 voted for the return, and only about 7,000 against. In The Hague, as I said earlier, after I spoke, afterwards at the coffee break, so many people come up to me and said, "We want to support the cause, and the Marbles must go back." And these were judges and lawyers from around the world, because who were there talking about what was taken from the Jewish people during the Second World War in The Hague. Oops. Steve Ashton, the Canadian chairman, who's a member of Parliament, his daughter is also a member of Parliament. He speaks fluent as well. He's very much in favour of the return of the marbles, and this photo was taken the night when the officially opened the New Acropolis Museum. That's how I had a cup of coffee, and we met with Michael afterwards too. Christopher Hitchens, who wrote this book. Have any of you read this book? If you haven't, I urge you to buy it, especially the latest one. And if you're a lawyer, the very first thing that comes to your mind is litigation, because you can see the injustice by the British Museum trustees and his fellows to keep on hanging on to something that does not belong to them. It's as simple as it does not belong to them. And Christopher Hitchens said it very, very nicely in his book. And even Jules Dassin, the husband of the late Melinda McCurdy, and Mrs. Cubit, and my very, very good friend, the late Professor Emanuel Comino, our Vice Chairman for a number of years. Last year in London, Tom Flynn on the right, from the University Museums, brilliantly spoke at the colloquy last year towards the return of the Parthenon Marbles. And George Bizos, this was in 2010, in another international conference in the Acropolis Museum, some 17 speakers that day, and Emanuel Comino. And last year, the three chairmen that organised the first colloquy on the far left, Eddie O'Hara, a wonderful person, unfortunately, as I said earlier, unable to attend due to illness, Australia and USA. And we made a pledge we're going to continue to do this annually. And that's what we're having here this year. And next year, we'll see. We'll see, that's right. And here, once again, there's 4 continents here with Mr. Bezos, Australia, Michael and Eddie. Ladies and gentlemen, even Spiro Mercouris, the brother of the late Melinda McCurdy, still fights on. So it's not only just Greeks, it's Phil Hellenes, and most importantly, we have people from England that are supporting the return of the marbles. So it's not only Emanuel Comino and Melinda McCurdy. We have people, as I said, from all around the world supporting this. And why the marbles must come back? There's only one reason why they must go back, because these marbles are ours, and they must go back to Greece. And with your support, and keep publishing and saying it. Thank you very much. I must just tell you very quickly, if I may, and there's 2 seconds. Melinda McCurdy, this photo was taken when she was in Sydney in 1984. I was honoured to be present with in the Premier's office. He invited 25 from around Sydney, and I was the lucky one. And we knew each other because of our correspondence with the late millionaire. So once she was there, she came over to me, she said to me in Greek, which I'll never forget the words. She said, αγόρι μου να μην σταματήσεις ποτέ στον αγώνα για την επιστροφή τα μάρμαρα του Παρθενώνα στην Ελλάδα. And to translate in English, I'm sorry, he said, my boy, that never stopped the struggle for the return of the Parthenon Marbles to Greece. And I said to her, then and there, I will fight on as long as I live until England promises to send her back or until the day I die. She hugged me and kissed me and left. And it was the last time I saw her.